FMC friends! We have reached the end of summer and the end of our summer video series, and so I bring you part 7, the finale, Revelation. So the book of Revelation is a bit wild and exciting and terrific and fantastic, and the Shine Bible probably sums it up better than my little poster. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Shine Bible just to give an introduction to our final book and our final genre of biblical literature. A man named John was sent to the island of Patmos, away from family and friends, as punishment for following Jesus. While John was there, he had a vision, and this is what he saw and heard. And that is what the book of Revelation comes out of John being sent away to this island, and while he's there he has these vivid, wild, I guess dreamings or imaginings and visions about the future, and the future for God's people. My poster calls it an apostolic and prophetic condemnation letter to the 7 churches in Asia. It contains metaphor and especially apocalyptic prose. A little bit wordy. Basically, Revelation is given its own genre, even though it's just one book or letter, because it's so different from everything else in the Bible. But it also ties way back to the beginning in Genesis, where we find a garden. So I'm in my local memory garden. I see there's a mosquito on my forehead. Ugh. And somewhere around here is Siga. And we are going to explore this garden a little bit today. And I'm also going to come back to Revelation and tie it way back to the beginning. And we're going to go from one garden to another garden. Come take a look at these, Siga.
Are they big ones?
I don't think so. Come take a look at them.
They do not look like acorns at all.
What do you think they might be? Does anybody know what these are? These plants aren't labeled.
Right?
How does that smell?
Good.
Does it smell very sweet?
Yeah.
There's not a ton in bloom right now. Come, Sig.
No.
But it's still lovely to come explore a new area and look at the beauty around us on these lovely days while we still have them. Siga's been collecting acorns. Let's go to the little rose area. So Siga, I want to ask you a couple things. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Can you stand in front of the rose bushes here? So if you could draw a picture or think about what it would look like for you to imagine a brand new earth, an earth that you could create to be perfect, what would be in it? What would that look like? What kinds of things would be in a perfect world?
Rainbows and cotton candy.
Rainbows and cotton candy?
Unicorns that you can slide on the rainbow. That would be perfect.
Would there be enough food and shelter for everybody?
Yes.
And how would people be taken care of? And how would they treat one another?
Nicely.
They would treat one another nicely? Anything else you would want to put into your perfect world?
Sharing kindness and always complimenting others with nice words.
Well, there's a reason that I was asking Siga about how she would envision a new and perfect world. Way back in the beginning, literally in the beginning of the Bible, we have the story of creation. And in the story of creation, we have this beautiful garden God created for people to live in and for there to be shalom, or kind of like perfect harmony between all of creation, between humans and creatures and plants, and between creation and their environment. And kind of the rest of the Bible is how the story unfolds, with creation living in this world that God created, and how humanity has a hard time being good followers of God and good stewards of creation. And so God kind of sends people into the story to remind the people how we are supposed to be taking care of one another and of the good earth that God created. So then at the very end of the Bible, after Jesus has lived and really shown the way of how we are supposed to be disciples, after Jesus' death and resurrection, and after all the letters that we talked about last Sunday, the apostolic literature, we have this book, Revelation, at the very end. And in Revelation chapter 22, which is the last chapter of the whole Bible, the author comes back to this image of a perfect world being recreated, kind of like the restoration of Eden, the Garden of Eden. And it's actually interesting, if you go back through the Bible someday when you're reading different bits of the Bible, you will read parts that also pick up on this theme of gardens, like Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. And in the prophets, there's a lot of reference to different types of kind of gardens or habitations that have kind of dried up, becoming restored and green and fresh again. And so this is a common theme in the Bible, and Revelation kind of takes that to its finale and says, in the end, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth, and that's when God's plan will come to be fulfilled entirely. So right now we're in this kind of in-between time, and I'm going to read a little bit for you from the Shine Bible, New Heaven and New Earth, from Revelation chapters 1, 21, and 22. It says, "There was a new heaven and a new earth. I saw God's holy city of Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. It looked as festive as a bride at her wedding. I heard a loud voice saying, 'This is God's home. God will live here with the people and wipe everyone's tears away. There will be no more dying. There will be no more crying. There will be no more pain. All those things will be gone. See, I am making all things new. I am the beginning and the end. I will give the water of life to all those who are thirsty. I will be their God, and they will be my children.' John heard and saw these and many other strange things in his vision. He fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who showed them to him. But the angel said, 'Don't worship me, worship God.'" And here's the picture that the artist drew for the Shine Bible's Revelation page. And I didn't practice with Siggy ahead of time. I didn't tell her I was going to ask her a question, but it's really interesting. I'm curious to know what you guys think of what you're imagining or dream or vision of a perfect new creation would be. So she said kind of some silly things like rainbows and unicorns, and I don't remember what else, maybe cotton candy, which is pretty age appropriate. But if you actually think about the details in Revelation, we do have these wild, fantastic kind of creatures with wings and horns and many eyes. And so it's not that far of a stretch to imagine something kind of, I'm going to say crazy, but like just fantastical. And she also talked about, well, I prompted her, but she talked about how her perfect world would be full of people that care and kind of lift one another up. And this is the true essence of what carries through the entire Bible, from the first Garden of Eden to the final garden. Sorry about that crow, but it's part of the creation. To the final garden. And so the whole story takes place between these two gardens, and I love that imagery And lo and behold, one of our camp songs actually centers on this exact imagery too. And so maybe you'll be able to guess what song we're going to end up with today. But before we get to singing, I want to ask a few questions. My legs are getting tired. And say a prayer. My question to you is more of a challenge, actually. Sometimes I lead with a challenge. And thinking about the image of a new world, a perfect world, something being recreated. If you, like I asked before, could think about how you would recreate the world, how would that translate into your life now? How would you live your life right now to make that vision come to be true as true as you can? And that's what Jesus, I feel like, really challenged people to do in his time, the people around him, to say like, yeah, the kingdom's not here in its entirety yet. You know, people are still getting sick, there's still sadness, but like in that Revelation passage, it said, there will be no more tears, there will be no more crying, no more dying, no more of that, no more struggle. And so while we're waiting for that time, what little things, what big things, what practical things can we do in our own lives to make the world closer to that vision of harmony and perfection and recreation? So think about that. Maybe draw a picture to help you think about this, or just for fun. And then I will also say a prayer. God, thank you for the beauty you have created around us. Help us to step out of our door, out of our gloom, and to open our eyes to that when we're having a hard time seeing it. And also, God, we thank you for the gardens, the garden in the beginning of creation and the garden that is to come in the recreation. And so in this time that we're living between these two Edens, these two perfect worlds, one that was created and one that is yet to be recreated, I ask that you be with us and help us and challenge us and give us strength and courage and wild imagination to live out our lives with meaning and intent for shalom. Amen.